If your adult child still needs to be on your cell phone plan, you might be an enabler. Thanks for watching. This is Dr. Miles again, the Recovery Ranger. Welcome to our YouTube channel. Tonight we're going to talk about a very integral, critical part of the recovery process. There's a thing called anhedonia. Okay, one of the reasons, I think it's probably one of the biggest reasons why addicts who don't make it fail because they cannot, will not become willing to move past this pattern into a new way of living. Okay, anhedonia is just a clinical term. What it actually means is without pleasure. So what anhedonia is an inability to experience pleasure from normally pleasurable experiences. Okay, well that makes a lot of sense when you understand what's going on with the brain, the addict brain. Person comes off of, let's say, a binge or a long period of using or drinking, and they, drugs and alcohol spike the dopamines, right? You've got all these receptor sites and everything's just spiking in the brain, and we go from feeling normal to maybe 10 times normal, and then all of a sudden it's gone. There's no more alcohol, there's no more drugs, and there's a huge crash. The brain does not instantly, this is what withdrawal is, the brain does not instantly start regenerating. It's waiting to see if you're going to feed it or if the addict is going to feed it. And it can last days, it can last weeks, it can last months. So another way to think of it is it's called post-acute withdrawal syndrome, also known as the wall. But what I really wanted to talk about is this pattern of anhedonia, and it can occur even when the person's going through a period of abstinence. It doesn't have to require using or drinking to elicit this detrimental experience. And it's during this experience that most addicts will relapse, run away, create chaos, promiscuous sex, use again, drink again, whatever it is. Okay, it can also happen having nothing to do with drugs or alcohol. So let me run through my notes. I want to keep this kind of short, but it is a huge reason why so many addicts don't get better. And as families, if you're a family member of an addict or a friend of an addict, you'll recognize this pattern. And until, this is why the addict can never do it on their own, in spite all the best intentions. Well, if you guys, my family, would just help me get my car fixed, let me get another job, if you could just pay all my bills current so I don't have that pressure, maybe get me an apartment somewhere where you pay the first 3 months so I don't have that pressure, then I'll really be able to succeed. And families, loving, well-intentioned, do just those things. The problem is we're not dealing with a rational, healthy, mentally stable being. We're dealing with an addict. And so what always happens? Everybody goes into it. Even the addict has the best intentions. The addict really believes, oh, this time, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it. I'm so grateful for my family. Month goes by, things look good. A couple months go by, things are looking good, but getting a little shaky. And everyone has their pattern. And we usually crash and burn. When I say we, I'm talking about addicts in the active addict stage. It may be 3 months, it may be 6 months, but right as we're getting to that point, we're going to self-destruct. And of course, when the addict self-destructs, it's always everybody else's fault. Well, I had no choice. I had to leave that job. I couldn't work there. Everybody was mean to me. My boss didn't appreciate me, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so what's happening in drug use, I've got a whole other thing on this. It's a whole PowerPoint. So if you really want a lot more details, shoot me an email and I'll be happy to send you this PowerPoint. But when the addict begins using, typically in adolescence, that's when most people use. You may not have been considered an addict at 13, but you started using. Okay, well, the adolescent brain is not fully developed until the age of 25. So what do you suppose happens to that brain when a 13-year-old introduces a foreign substance called a narcotic into that system? Well, you're disrupting the development of the brain, right? And what happens is, and it doesn't even have to be every day, it can be periodic. But what's happening is you're taking an already developing brain and you're disrupting it, and it literally creates new pathways. So as the brain develops, let me think of that. I don't want to get too technical with you. Think of it this way. Doesn't that make a lot of sense? After you stand back and you watch your child, and then a teenage child, and then an adult child who seems to be really intelligent, really creative, has pieces of their lives that seem very accomplished and successful, and then the most bizarre decision making takes effect. What in the world were they thinking? Are you kidding me? You left your car on the side of the road, whatever it is. You relapsed the night before you were supposed to start your new job. Well, if you understand how the brain works and how the brain is impacted by narcotics, it makes perfect sense. So the parts of the brain, healthy parts of the brain, they're supposed to communicate with other healthy parts of the brain get completely disrupted. So to the addict, it actually seems rational. But everyone around them is like, are you kidding me? What are you thinking? And so what has to happen is the addict has to be willing to slow down long enough for the brain to heal, all the while developing, receiving, learning new ways of thinking, new ways of behaving. We literally have to learn how to make decisions, and that takes time. A true addict is never going to solve this problem on their own. I don't care what they say, what they promise, what they beg. So many of the families that we deal with have been in and out of rehabs for years. I think our longest run family we worked with, their child had been to 15 rehabs, and this adult child was only 30 years old. That's not okay. That is jacked up. We have to be willing to slow down and invest the time necessary for change. Okay, another little factoid. Takes 18 to 24 months for the brain to heal. Not going to take that long to establish a good, healthy recovery foundation, but there's a lot going on in the brain, and it sure makes sense when you think about the 20 or the 30 or the 40 years of damage that we've done to it. Okay, so let me back up. In the we'll call it the addict process. Okay, the addict uses, gets a spike in dopamine, feels good, temporary relief, and then the crash. And then when they crash, the addict doesn't go to normal, they go below normal. And they hang out below normal because their brain is not producing what it needs to be producing yet. It's waiting for the addict to feed it. And this is why you see the irritability, the restlessness, the anger, can be depression, the sobbing, the crying, the begging, please, please, don't make me, just let me, whatever it is. And it can seem very genuine in those experiences. and it is genuine, but it doesn't change the fact that there's a very real brain disease taking place, and this is how it manifests. Okay, so we're at this point now, we're in this process. The addict has used, the addict has had a huge spike of dopamine, and now there's been a huge drop in dopamine where they're no longer using, and then depression sets in, shame sets in, guilt sets in, doom and gloom. It's this point right here where people who commit suicide, this is where they do it at this period right here. And the only thing the addict needs or wants in that moment is instant relief. Okay, so the decision making at that stage is all about changing my feelings. Not changing the way I think. It's not making some behavioral changes. It's not changing the way I deal with my mom, changing the way I talk to my kids, changing, it has nothing to do with anything related to a responsibility. It has everything and only to do with I need to change the way I feel. I need instant gratification. And so the cycle repeats. Now here's the thing, it doesn't have to include using. When I say using, the first stage of that, I wish I would have outlined it for you and I could have put it on the window, but the first stage is use, okay? But use doesn't have to include drugs or alcohol. Use is what represents this compulsive behavior. Okay, so that can be promiscuous sex. It can be workaholism. It can be chaos. It can be a lot of arguing and fighting. Any of those behaviors release dopamine. And there's always a spike in that behavior, and there's always a crash that follows. So it's the same pattern. You could lay this over. This does not just apply to addicts and alcoholics. This applies to most people in the world. Normal, healthy, rational, and I haven't met one yet, but I hear they're out there. But more normal, healthier people are able to cope through these periods. Okay, so, and then what happens is, all right, we're at the end, we're at the self-destruction stage. I just need instant gratification. And so what that looks like is some examples of instant gratification. It can be anything from actually using again, running away. I don't know what I need. I don't know what I need. I just know I can't be here. I can't be here. I got to go over there. I just need to get to such and such. I just need to do such and such. If I could just do this and just do that, and you guys need to help me, and you need to give me a ride, and you need to stop everything you're doing and cater to me because I'm in crisis and I need. Right? Families totally know what I'm talking about. You've lived it. Can also be a lot of complaining. Oh, this is bullcrap, and I can't do that, and blah, 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 and these people, and I hate these, and they're stupid, and they're idiots, and craving attention spikes the same dopamine. Feeling sorry for self. These are all things that get us where the addict runs into. So I don't have to feel. And that's the kicker. That is literally the key to changing this whole thing. So basically the pattern that I've just described was using, spiking, crashing, having feelings, but immediately rejecting those feelings. I don't want to feel what I'm feeling. I need something else so I don't have to feel what I'm feeling. And where that actually leaves the addict, is same place it's always led us. It never works. You may achieve some temporary relief, but it's not lasting relief. What it does, though, it leaves the addict depressed, fearful, hopeless, irritable, restless, bored. By the way, bored, the word bored is not a word you'll ever hear anyone in recovery use. Bored, the word bored means I'm just thinking about myself too much, right? I'm bored, and I need you to do something so that I don't feel bored. Bored is not a word that rational, healthy, productive people use. And this is the time. Oh, there can be a lot of blaming too going on. When the addict throughout life has had very little experience accepting personal responsibility, right? And as family members, that. The thing is because of family's codependency and enabling, we can get drawn into it. Oh, my poor baby. Oh, that's right. Oh, my 40-year-old adult child just can't seem to catch a break. And we can buy into that. Oh, God, they really are, a victim of an injustice. That's not, they may be having some struggles and some difficulties with other people, but that's not how you guys respond to situations, difficult situations. You don't call anyone and go, oh, man, I would have been more successful with this project I was working on or this task that was required of me, but whatever, my neighbor, my girlfriend, my boyfriend, my my ex, someone else got in the way and prevented me. That's a lie. That's ridiculous. So pay attention to those things. You've got to reconsider this narrative that tends to flow between the addict and the families, and it can be so automatic. You know, once mom or dad starts going, wait a second. You said that I noticed that every time you got your feet to the fire or your back against the wall, nothing is ever your fault. Not even 10% of it. You always blame someone or something else. And that's why your mom and I are still paying for your cell phone bill. That's why we still have to put gas in your car. That's why you're still on our car insurance plan. That's why you haven't paid, you can't pay 6 months of rent straight, just totally on your own. Maybe we didn't help you, but you got the money from somebody else. You shacked up with a girl. You know, it's just starting to interject reality into your situation. And no, it can seem a little harsh, but I've been there, and I've been on both sides of it. I am a recovering addict, and I'm also a family member of a recovering addict. Actually, I'm a family member of a couple recovering addicts, but one of them died. So we know a little bit about this, and I get how harsh I can sound sometimes, but that's the point. Because if you don't think, well, let me back up. I'll tell you what. You know who doesn't make it in recovery? The people who never accepted that we're dealing with a life or death situation. That's it. The people who recognize, man, if I don't make some changes, I'm going to die, are the ones that do very well. But the ones who think, it's, you know, I know my tolerance, which is not a tolerance issue. I got close once, but I'll never use like that anymore. I'll be fine. That only happens to somebody else. Those are the people that die. Okay, so now, very quickly, let's talk about, so what is the pattern? What are we looking for? What should the pattern look like? And this is why we can't do it on our own, because the addict would never lead themselves through this. But I'm going to give you family members some ideas so you know what to look for, and you know at least a level of accountability you can hold the addict to. Okay? So the pattern starts off the same. Using, dopamine spike, and then the crash. Okay? Can't feel without pleasure. Can't feel anything pleasurable. Hey, we want to take you to dinner. No, I don't. Well, we're going to go to your favorite restaurant. No, I'm not interested. And what's happening in that stage is there's a whole lot of feeling. Feeling hopeless, shameful, regretful, remorseful, guilty, afraid. The way change begins is at that moment, that stage, the addict needs to accept those feelings, stop being in such a hurry to get past them. The addict does not need instant gratification in that stage. The addict needs to sit tight. The addict needs to feel what they're feeling, talk about what they're feeling, share what they're feeling, but then accept a personal responsibility, which can be all kinds of things, you know, and this is why we need help, because, you know, a professional is going to take that addict in the early stages of recovery and they're going to lead them through with appropriate suggestions depending on what the person's capable of doing. But if the addict, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. If the addict has spent a lifetime dodging feelings, right? Constantly seeking to feel better and running or avoiding from feeling bad, the reality is the addict has no idea what they're feeling. The addict, if you ask the addict, you know, hey, how you feeling? It's like, I don't know, which isn't an answer. I'm pissed off, or I'm depressed. You know, hey, how are you feeling today? I don't know. I'm waiting on a phone call. I'll tell you after I get the phone call. You know, or I'm waiting for this thing to work out. That is a person who has no idea what to do with what they're feeling, or even have an understanding of how to identify what they're feeling. So that's what needs to happen at this stage, is start feeling what you're feeling, talk about it, explore it, share it, but don't follow it. Well, how do I not follow my feelings? What's the next right thing? Whatever you were supposed to do next, that's what you go and do. Okay, so let me kind of talk a little bit more about this anhedonia. I've kind of just barely scratched the surface, but it's an observation that I've made over the years. The people who, remember, you don't have to have just used either to be on a crash and burn. You might be 3 months sober. You might be 6 months sober, but while the brain is changing, everybody goes through this lull. You just wake up one day, everything was going good, and all of a sudden, boom, you have difficulty finding pleasure in otherwise pleasurable experiences. And remember, when the addict starts feeling down or a negative emotion, well, I know how I can get instant gratification. I can just go use, or I can create a crisis, or I can be mad at the world, or I can be, whatever it is. And so that's why it's so critical in early recovery to start identifying your feelings, tapping into those feelings. Recognize, what is it? Is it really anger? Are you really pissed off at the world? Or you're sad, or your feelings were hurt, or you're disappointed, or, there's a whole gamut of emotions that addicts do not have a history of understanding how to experience, right? It's all or nothing. I'm either pissed off at the world, or I'm depressed as heck. And those really aren't emotions anyway, those are conditions. So the addict in recovery, early recovery, has to be willing to explore these emotions wherever it leads, while not following the feelings in our behavior, right? Feel the feeling, but do the next responsibility. And what happens very quickly on, addicts have to replace chasing emotions with chasing responsibilities. And of course, we don't know what that looks like either, because if you ask an addict, what do you think is the most important thing for you to do next, the addict is going to tell you something that's going to help them feel better. It's going to be an emotional driven decision, which of course is the wrong answer. Okay, but let me tell you what happens. This is the hope. This is what you get to look forward to. Early on in the recovery experience, if the addict is willing to actually do the work, increase self-esteem, right? All those feelings we've been chasing for a lifetime starts happening automatically because we're living differently. We're making different decisions. We start looking for things to take responsibility for, instead of looking for things to avoid responsibility, or looking for things that could be exciting, or things that could be instantly gratifying. We start looking around for things that are important to do, and we do them even though we don't feel like doing them. You start to develop a willingness to delay gratification. You start feeling more human. Being teachable is one of the most important aspects of recovery. We can, I did it myself in my early recovery days. We come into our recovery situation, whatever that looks like, and it sounds good. We know that we don't want to live the way we've been living, but we're really not sure what to do, and we're a little hesitant, and it all kind of seems a little cultish anyway. I gotta feel things out, which is so ridiculous. But what does the addict know about living a whole life? Nothing. And if you did, we'd already been doing it, right? We don't. So becoming willing to be teachable is really probably the first most important thing, is to be teachable. And here's how you know someone's not being teachable, because every time they get some new information or perhaps a suggestion, they want to debate it. Oh, well, no, you don't understand, I already did that, or no, I think I was maybe going to do it this way, or I don't see how that's going to help me, but I can kind of understand, so maybe I'm going to try it this way. People who are debating are the ones that are going to die. Addicts don't have one iota of credibility to debate anything when it comes to living a healthy life. If we did, we'd already put a healthy life together for ourselves. We don't have it. It's not going to happen that way. We have to be teachable. We've got to be all in on recovery. And we gotta be aware of the pitfalls, the anhedonias, the post-acute withdrawal syndrome, also known as the wall. It's gonna happen whether you're in early recovery, middle recovery, a little bit later. When I say later, it could be up to 2 years. When the addict is going through periods where things seem fine and now you're gloomy, that's just part of your change process. Keep it simple. Keep talking about what you're thinking about. Allow yourself to feel those feelings, and you keep doing the next right thing. I'm Dr. Miles, this Recovery Ranger out. Check out our website, justinslighthouse.com. If you need some help, call the number 405-248-2124. 405-248-2124. Until next time.